Hello, fabulous Scorpio. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of May 2014 Love Focus. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Well, in the general horoscope for this month, I did touch on the implications of this full moon taking place in the middle of the month and how it relates to love. And so I'm going to expand on that a little bit more. I do want to start off by saying last month I talked extensively about eclipse, a very positive eclipse that takes place or that took place at the very end of April. And that is actually the energy that you're carrying into this month. So if you haven't already in the late part of April experienced a boon or some of the realizations of the energy I spoke about in the love video for last month, you may want to watch that again and be open to the fact that that energy actually continues into the early part of this month. But what I find especially interesting where it comes to love is while that energy is, as I said last month, is really interesting, an eclipse in your opposite sign is always really interesting, and such a positive eclipse is especially interesting. In the middle of the month, we have this full moon taking place in your sign. And this full moon is happening very close to Saturn, planet of stability, planet of hard truth, being honest with yourself, honoring the physical plane, understanding that self-respect is a journey. And it comes by being consistent between who it is that you believe yourself to be and actually demonstrating that through your actions. And this particular full moon is speaking in harmony with, and at the same time Saturn is speaking in harmony with Jupiter. And Jupiter currently is in the part of the sky for you that has to do with your higher ideals and your higher values. And also Jupiter is the ruler of the part of the sky that has to do with fulfillment for you. And so put these pieces together, okay, and understand, as I spoke of in the general horoscope as well, you've got Mars, your ancient ruling planet, having moved backwards in the sky, in the sign just before yours, the sign that has to do with, or sorry, the part of the sky that has to do with the clandestine and what you like to keep hidden, and sometimes even hidden from yourself. And you put this together, Mars is going to start moving direct. You're about to get some very strong insights into what you've wanted and why you've wanted it, what has driven you. You're about to understand much more deeply as to where it is that you sort of trip yourself up. And we can see how this can play out in love context as well, in relationship context as well. And especially considering that there is this really positive eclipse taking place in your opposite sign. It does suggest to me that an important sort of understanding, an important learning happens for you in the middle of the month, where you understand the attraction and you understand the changes that were transpiring for you right around the end of April and as you headed into the early part of the month. And that in turn is going to fuel into your personal moment of honesty. And ultimately, the moment of honesty comes down to, what is it that you really want? And what is it that you really want to be walking? It is a moment of honesty that is fueled in part by self-respect, a desire for greater self-respect, a desire to live in a way that is congruent with who it is that you believe yourself to be in the highest sense of the word. And there's also an element here of you being honest with yourself about why you've had the attractions you've had, what's drawn you towards those attractions, and where maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe what you thought you wanted isn't what you want anymore. I look at all this together and it does suggest that, you know, as always, love is ultimately a personal journey. Love is ultimately a journey that is meant to show us who we are to ourselves, allow us to see ourselves afresh in the reflection of the eyes of another. And I think about that understanding that you're having, this lift that you're having at the beginning of the month, the high that you feel, the sense that this could be it. And then in the middle of the month, deciding if this is really it, who is it that I have to be? What is it that I need to be doing? What is it that needs to change? And you come to understand that the people who come into your life, especially recently, before we get you to this full moon, ultimately, their purpose was and is to get you to this moment, to get you to the moment, to be honest with yourself, to turn the focus back on yourself, make changes as a result. Those of you who are in an established bond, whether it's been feelings, whether it's been actual actions taking place, if there's been on your part any sense of distance from this person because you've been sort of moving towards or thinking about or drawn to somebody outside of the committed relationship, well, I think the most likely scenario here is that you commit to the bond once again. That's the most likely scenario. A small percentage of you might decide that you want to strengthen the new bond, but I have to tell you, ultimately, Mars is going to be going direct. It does look like you're going to see any other attractions you've been having in a different light, in a different context. And given that Saturn really is the planet of the tried and true and what has been, it does look like there's sort of a recommitment on your part, however privately it may be, to do what you can to strengthen the current bond that you have. And so that doesn't necessarily mean, because I know some people like to watch videos of the other person in their life. This doesn't mean necessarily that Scorpios have been doing anything. But if there have been any feelings, if there has been any sort of, not even necessarily feelings for another person, but even just sort of secret behavior you've been doing to create some distance that you haven't been totally honest about, it does look like there's an understanding that occurs on your part as to how maybe keeping some things back at times is good, because it is about sort of you keeping a sense of yourself, but maybe at times is not so good, and you're ready to kind of say, okay, you know what, this interferes, energetically at least, interferes with my connection with my partner, so I'm going to choose not to indulge that anymore. So there's some decisions being made that ground you further into that relationship. For those of you who have somebody in your sphere, I do think that the likelihood of you sort of seeing what your draw to this person was to begin with, seeing that attraction differently, is very strong and is very likely as well. And from there, you'll be able to make a more conscious decision as to how you want to proceed in this bond. And most of all, it's rooted in you sort of being honest with yourself as to who this other person is. Also, for those of you who are not in a committed relationship right now, as I said, because, as I said last month in the love horoscopes, I mean, an eclipse so positively placed in your opposite sign tends to denote somebody new coming along, somebody who does have an impact and does in some way really help align you with a higher vision for your life, which is ultimately what eclipses are about. And if you are somebody who's open to love, it does look like, in light of your recent experiences, you start to understand maybe some of the reactions you had in those circumstances, and that's going to allow you to sort of understand how it is that you want to proceed, and how it is that you want to proceed with an eye towards the big picture, the long term, actually wanting this to actually have a chance to last, what it is that you need to do. You get some insight into that, and that in turn will inform the choices that you make going forward from here. One thing is for sure, though, I really do find that those moments of honesty are turning points in our life that shape us. You are reaching a turning point where it comes to love and where it comes to your emotional well-being. And this is a turning point that is going to lead you in a direction of greater stability and a greater sense of ethics in all of your relationships. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great month. Be fabulous and enjoy.